Hello there, and happy Thanksgiving, postmodern literature students. I am going casual. It's Thanksgiving, and I wanted to give you a very brief lecture on the two books that you did, both finishing up Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler, and beginning Ava. So you have two essay choices this week, depending on which book and depending on how far you've gotten. Once again, I'm extremely sensitive to your time constraints as an individual, as a family member, and as someone who works and has multiple classes. I'm not trying to kill you, is what I'm trying to say. Um, but let's finish up with the Calvino. I'm not going to give away the ending in case you choose that one for your option, that study of the last three chapters. And it was very similar to the study of the last three chapters with Briar Rose that we previously did. But by now, you know the way the chapters are symmetrical, right? You know the way that the 10 books are. So for the most part, I'm showing you as I'm trying to talk, you know that Calvino is playing games with us, and either the publisher Cavadania, right, the editor whom the second person, is going to go see, is giving us a manuscript to read, or we're in some kind of very fraught environment where we're looking for a secret manuscript, and those are often found through happenstance. They're found. There's some manuscript that Morena has been editing. That this translator, whom we don't know, is a little kind of shady, may or may not be working in Ludmilla's apartment. But the idea is we're being toyed with in terms of what book we're reading and the orientation towards that book. Notice no setting is given. We don't know whether it's the Polish novel or not. And the lines intersect, the book intersects in many ways. So you know the overarching numbered parts are often based upon our male narrator, either looking for women, but most prominently looking for Ludmilla, who seems to be, through intimations, his love interest. And if you got to the part, gosh, I want to say it's chapter, I don't know, the Inierno section, I guess it's chapter 7, you actually, the goes into her apartment, meets another male, and that is someone whom I wanted to mention to you. In this case, it's Irnerio, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm in chapter 7, and you're in Ludmilla's apartment, and picking up various volumes. Morena, the strange translator editor who may be working for various, I don't know what you call them, communist terrorist organizations, may or may not be a peaceful intermediary between those. But you're in her apartment, and you're reading Morena's letters, and Ludmilla comes in at that point. You start talking to her and the second person, and the relationship is actually consummated at that point. So seems to be dating her, seems to be in a relationship with her, but it's always the other reader. She is the other reader. So is some other female, the female who's being watched on various beaches and all of that. And the question that I asked my in-seat students is whether there's symmetry, right? So, in other words, hypothetically speaking, if we stopped at chapter 7, right, the number chapter, we picked up our book. We know what he's going to do. We know that we found a book in Ludmilla's apartment, a network of lines that intersect. And in this one, it's that strange book or novel that we're starting, and I think it's a South American one, right? So it's somewhere there. It's Silas Flannery's novel. It may have a different name. You know that he's toying with us. This is part of postmodernism. And in this one, it's about a businessman written in first person. So we are look at his shifts in pronouns. So there's lots of shifts in pronouns. And in this one, it's a guy who uses mirrors and duplication and false robberies to throw off organized crime who seems to be after him. I imagine this person, there's no evidence of this, as some type of political leader in a place like Venezuela, or some type of important politician. And he often throws off his wife as well because he has mistresses. On page 164, every day both I and my doubles visit. This is his fake mistresses on a constantly changing schedule. Pied à terre, scattered all over the city. Those are apartments where you meet briefly for you know what, and inhabited by attractive women. This network of false mistresses allows me to conceal my true meetings with Lorna and also from my wife, Elfrida, to whom I presented this extravaganza as a security measurement. And he also has a fake holdup with cars and motorcycles. And at the end, he's actually held up for real, which throws us off. And his wife comes through and says, I've done this for you to create this fake when there's a real interrogation coming. He sees Lorna on the floor. It's a strange one. It's supposed to throw us off. And if you remember, we were just in Ludmilla's apartment in chapter 7, right? Now we're in the diary of Silas Flannery. Remember, there are these different authors: Silas Flannery, there's Westerveld, Vanderveld, excuse me. Oh gosh, that's a Seinfeld reference. And all of these writers are, you could either say they're Irish, they're Belgian, they're French. We're reading his diary, and he's talking about watching a woman on a terrace as he's writing, and he depicts two various versions of writers. One is held in by writer's block, one is tortured, and one just writes very freely. And so much of the book is about people watching other people read, right? So he's watching this woman intently. And we know that Calvino often presents his male characters with love interest towards female characters. They're kind of it's intimated. We don't get descriptions of the women. We don't get descriptions of characters. It's such a strange story. But he's watching the woman on the deckhand and then starts various ideas for stories through his diary. So we're no longer in Ludmilla's apartment. And so the scenes have shifted. If you're asking me for ways that you can find consistent threads in making your way through and finishing Calvino's novel, there's usually some type of guerrilla, Guerilla, war going on, and you're trying to, or some type of implicit battle, like we see in sci-fi books, and we're trying to discern whose side our character is on and whose side is on you know what I mean, the protagonist side that one encounters are on. There's usually a male love interest. That's my second point, right? So there's usually, a male rival for one's female love interest. So no wonder he found another male in Ludmilla's apartment with him. There's usually a male that he has to kind of speak about. He might be friends with. And there are other facets besides those two, right? There's the idea of a bastardized manuscript, a book that's never come out, or a book that's been plagiarized, or a book that's been told, or people watching and then writing about what they see. If you're asking me from a biographical perspective, it seems like Calvino is portraying his own angst and anxiety about the quest of authorship. And so I wonder, this was published in 1979, what would he have thought in today's age where things are plagiarized on the internet? But a lot of the editions that he talks about, they're incorrect books, right? They're plagiarized. The narrator keeps looking for the right book that he started reading. And so there's lots of things going on in the novel. I do think the final 3 chapters will bring some type of, in a slight way, a resolution, including with our Ludmilla major plot line, including with the books that our narrator is looking for, and especially with, in the very next to the last chapter, chapter 11, right? So we don't start a fake novel. We have numbered ones. The reference to the readers, and specifically these strange chapter titles that we get, starting with If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler, which we only got once. All right, so shifting gears a little bit just for a moment, you're going to start Ava this week. This is a contemporary novel by contemporary American novelist Carol Masso. It's postmodern because look at the lines. The lines are, think about our short vignettes with Briar Rose. Think about our short chapters with Calvino's novel If on a Winter's Night, and look at the pages here. They're just brief. I might look up and name changed, address changed. He sits down to write. It's about a woman who is on her deathbed. I want to say she's 39. She's young, and it's sad and almost like a symphony of all her memories and postcards of all the things that she experienced put together. She's a comparative literature professor in New York City, so she's well versed in film, art, music, and literature. I can think of worse brains to be in when one dies. There are a couple things, and I know I should know this exactly, but the book doesn't spell it out. She has had multiple male lovers throughout her life, and the way that you can think about time frames is moving from point A to point B to point C to point D. Her current lover is a guy named Danilo, I should say, who's with her at her kind of, at least the person she's dating on her deathbed. She's had multiple husbands. They often have Hispanic names like Carlos. And those are all different points of her life. She has certainly enjoyed the pleasures of love, both on a platonic level and love on a bodily level. I'll say that. And so if you're asking how you can get into this novel, I think you just need to read it. And I don't think it'll be that difficult. I think you'll find an intense beauty, and I think you'll find intense sadness in it. She'll reference people whom you may not know, and reference people I don't completely know but know of. She'll reference like Spanish writers from the 19th century who fought in wars. She'll reference the great American modernist writers. You're English major, so you may know you'll know some of them, and I think you'll find it entertaining. And she'll reference like the Austrian composer Franz Schubert. And the thing to note about him is he had an unfinished symphony and he died at a young age. And the idea is that many of the references she finds are of people who died at a young age and couldn't finish what they wanted, which is clearly what's occurring to her as she's dying. And she's wondering, did I do enough with my life? And she remembers all these incredible moments. She as I said, she remembers lovemaking quite a bit. But she'll often reference these people who had a shortened leash on life but did accomplish great things, and she's wondering whether she did the same. You'll get lost a bit, as I have been, in many of these Spanish names, the cities. She's in Paris quite a bit. The lovers, just try to remember their names, and that's whom she was either married with or dating and seeing at the time. I will say her aunt, Anna Julia, and there's Catholicism. So you're taking a course at a university that in an area of pretty intense Catholicism. I hear the bells ringing in my office every day. And there's lots of Catholic rites. So she thinks about religion, but not, I don't know, maybe not in the way of a believer, but more in a way of someone who likes the prescribed rituals associated with it. But the point I was making about Anna Julia is that she died of a similar kind of disease, and she was the one who didn't make it. There's also references to the Treblinka. There's references to the Holocaust. These are tragic moments in world history. As I said, she's well-read. Hang in there. There's the Chilean poet Pablo Neruda, who writes intensive love poetry. Sorry, my kids are being loud. And I think you're going to find it a powerful experience to read. It's moving. It's deeply moving, and it's postmodern in the way that it's pastiche. The parts are connected. It's as if they're put together in her memories. And you'll see continuity between them, but you just have to jump in. You just have to read. That's our final book. You're almost there. I'm thinking of you, and I wish you well, postmodern literature students, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your families.